Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. Today we are talking about negotiating the 3 stages of marriage, and we are excited about today's podcast. Glad you joined us.
Welcome to the Stronger Marriage Podcast with Trey and Lee. On this podcast, you'll hear real topics about real life. They cover everything from married sex to raising kids to loving your spouse so much that you're willing to forgive them for occasionally being the most annoying person in the world. Trey and Lee have raised 4 boys, been married over 30 years, and somehow still really like each other. And now, live from the metropolis of Childress, Texas, a place so flat you can watch your dog run away for 3 days. Here are your hosts for the Stronger Marriage Podcast, Trey and Lee Morgan.
Hey guys, welcome. Glad you're joining us today. We are honored to have you with us. We're excited about today's podcast.
Yeah, we saw a great quote the other day that said, "A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person." I like that.
I do too.
Yeah. So why do you have to fall in love many times?
Well, there's different stages of marriage, and if you're, it's almost like we call it 3 marriages. There's 3 marriages, and almost everyone has 3 marriages in their lifetime. And a smart person learns to adjust and do those 3 stages or those 3 marriages with the same person. And if you can figure out how to do those well, all 3 stages with the same person, you will be blessed. So, what are our 3 stages we're talking about today?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the honeymoon stage, and that would be your time before kids. Then after you have kids, and then of course empty nest, which is where we have found ourselves.
Yeah, so we're going to look at 3 different areas. We call it honeymoon. You may be listening, not have any kids, and have been married for 6 years and be past your honeymoon. But before kids, when you have kids, and then after kids. Those are the 3 stages we're looking at today. And we're going to talk some do's and don'ts. And not sure where you are, but hang in there. We may get to where you fit in here, and you may not. Well, you have to fit somewhere in here. So we'll talk about them as we go. But let's just kick off, and we'll talk. Do we have anything we need to talk about before? We don't. We haven't been anywhere.
I haven't done anything too exciting the last week.
We're going to talk about what we're about to do later in this podcast.
Okay.
So no announcements, nothing exciting, but we're glad that you're here. Had a lot of people listen to last week's podcast on anger. That was obviously a hot topic. Did you catch that?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, it was a hot topic, and a lot of folks listened. So let's go ahead. We'll kick in before kids or honeymoon or newlywed stage. So if you are married and don't have any kids at this time, this would be you.
Yeah, we have 2 of our married sons that are still in this what we would call honeymoon phase. They don't have kids yet. Our second oldest, Parker, and his wife Abby are just days away from having their first.
They're moving into the next stage.
They are about to move into that next phase, and I think they're a little anxious about that.
And that's normal.
Yeah, they're a little sad that it's not going to be just the 2 of them anymore. Yet they're excited to welcome a new addition. So. Lots of changes coming their way that they'll have to negotiate. Our oldest son, Taylor, and his wife, Callie, are still pretty newlywed. They've been married for a year. Mm-hmm. So they're still really kind of enjoying that.
So this fits
phase.
them really well.
Yeah.
This fits them really well. So it's important to talk about this simply because things change dramatically when you have kids. So if you're pre-kids and you don't have kids yet, let's talk about some do's and don'ts and things that couples who don't have kids need to be doing right now to strengthen and prepare themselves for the next stage. Not just for this stage, but for the next stage. So give us one of those, Miss Morgan.
Well, I mean, it's a given that you're going to spend lots of time together. You don't have kids taking up your time, and so, but it's really important that you
want to spend time together.
That you want to spend time together, and that you still make time. I mean, don't get too busy with other friends or hobbies or work that you're not spending time with your new spouse.
Yeah.
So spend lots of time together. This is the time for you to get to know one another.
You're negotiating how to live together all of a sudden you're two different people living together. You've got differences, and this is a time to build a friendship. Before kids get in there, it is important that you go into marriage or strengthen your marriage by building your friendship with your spouse. It is healthy to be best friends with your spouse. And it's tough. Lee said a while ago, spend a lot of time together. It's really tough to be best friends if you're not spending any time together. You've got to spend time together to build that friendships. And friendships are a powerful glue in marriage. Divorce rate actually drops a lot in marriages who say, I am married to my best friend. And so that is really important.
That's good. Traveling together is great during this phase because you don't have kids.
Yes.
You don't have to figure out, what are we going to do with kids? And so if you've got the money, hopefully you can save for some little trips and vacations. Man, this is a great time to do that.
Because it gets tougher when you have kiddos to take off and go somewhere.
Man, yeah, tough. And sometimes almost impossible.
Yeah, which we'll talk about as we go. But yeah, take some trips. Be spontaneous if you can. You can do that better without kiddos. And so you can drop everything and just decide, hey, let's go somewhere. And so that really helps. So traveling is a good thing. Talking and communicating is healthy. You did that before you got married. That needs to continue once you are married as well. We've run across a lot of cool little books on conversation starters, which just, they might have a little question or something to just get you talking. And those are great little resources to have when you're newlyweds, especially, I think. Yep, that is true. Be intimate. That's important. And I think if you're truly newlyweds, that's probably a pretty easy thing to do. But one of the things that gets a little bit tougher that we'll talk about in a minute is intimacy when kids arrive. But be intimate. Use this time as a time to discover one another sexually, the way God created it to be. And so this is a healthy thing to do.
For sure.
Another thing is continue to date.
Continue to date. Really, this phase in your marriage, you can almost look at it as just one big date.
Right.
If you do it right.
You don't have to find childcare.
Yeah. Every day you can just almost make a little something feel like a date. So it's a fun time. Fun time to be married.
Now, some of us did things a little differently. You and I did not have a long newlywed stage.
We did not.
We had kind of, if I remember right, we kind of planned on about maybe 5 years before we'd have kids.
We said we're going to wait 4 or 5 years.
And about 5 months into marriage. Yeah. So sometimes God does that, and He brought us beautiful children, which we love dearly. But so we did not have a lot of time to prepare. Thankfully, we had dated for 4 years previous, so we had a chance to get to know each other pretty well. But you may be listening, and some of you may be in a blended family, which we're actually going to try and talk about in the next couple of weeks, negotiating blended families, tips on how to do blended families, and parenting blended families. You may have gone into marriage with kids. This may be a second marriage. Maybe you had a child before you got married. And so you may not have ever got the newlywed stage. And so you're going to have to work extra hard. And it's not to say that you can't do it. We're saying it's very possible. You're just going to have to work extra hard to work this stage into the next one as well with kids. And so you may not have ever got to this stage. And if you did not, that is okay. But if you did, you need to do the things we talked about because they are essential. There's one more on here that's really, really important.
It is important. Save money. Save money before you have kids because those kids are coming and your expenses are going to go up.
Yeah, save some money for a lot of things. For bills, save some money for extras that you'll have down the line because hopefully you'll have it as you need it a little bit later in life. But a lot of times without kids, you're making a little bit more money and you have an opportunity to save money. So, boy, save money. I've never met anybody who said, I hate that we saved a bunch of money. It's a good thing.
Yes.
It's a good thing.
You will eventually end up needing it.
That is right. Move into the next stage. So we've talked negotiating pre-kids. Let's talk about negotiating when you become mom and dad, when you have children at home. And we're going to guess that the majority of our listeners are here. And this is really who we target. This is really who we target and we focus on is your couples who have kids at home, because we've been there, we understand that. And so we talk from our experience on things like this and our workshops, our book. We do so much talking about how to negotiate marriage while you have children at home. And this is so important. So important.
It is. Yeah, and you got to realize that kids are not an interruption or an inconvenience to your marriage. They are a blessing. What's one of our favorite verses that
our favorite verse? Psalm 127 verse 1. Children are a blessing from the Lord. And so just because you have been newlyweds or you've been together by yourselves and children come, they're not a nuisance. They're not an interruption or an inconvenience. They're a blessing. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to be a family and to raise children. And one of the things we love about raising children is watching our kids fly on their own. And I know that may fit better under empty nest, but we're talking kids. We love watching our kids do life without us. That is a healthy thing. To see your kids having jobs and paying bills and being married and going to school and not requiring us to help them a lot. Now, we're always here for our kids, but it is so good to see your kids, to raise kids. My job is to work myself out of a job as a parent. Now, I will always parent, and I still parent. And it doesn't matter if my kid's 30 or 31 or 18. I'm still going to parent, but my job is to work myself out of that I support you type job of hey, you go fly on your own, go do life on your own, and that's a good thing. But we're talking marriage, and we're talking how this can be tough on marriage. Kids can be tough on marriage if you don't do it right. And so we want to do marriage correctly.
That's right. You got to remember to put your marriage first. And you may have that. Am I skipping ahead?
No, not at all.
But yeah. And actually, if you looked up that verse, and you're going to look up that verse, it's verse 3, not verse 1.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, children are a gift from the Lord. They're a reward from Him. That's Psalm 127, verse 3.
Verse 1 says, unless the Lord builds the house.
Yeah. So anyway, many of you became mom and dad, or you become mom and dad, and you stop being husband and wife. And that's dangerous for your marriage. It really is. You don't want to put your marriage to the back burner. We always preach that. Keep your marriage in the forefront, and your kids will benefit from that. Your marriage will benefit from that. I promise you're not going to neglect your kids just because you are putting your marriage first.
Yeah. Nobody's saying neglect your children. In fact, we're just saying don't neglect your marriage.
Right.
That's what we're saying.
Exactly.
And your marriage will not thrive. It will not thrive if you spend all of your time being mom and dad. You have got to spend time being husband and wife too. Can I say that twice? Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to make sure they catch this. Mm-hmm. Your marriage during this stage will not thrive if you spend all of your time being mom and dad. You also need to spend time being husband and wife too.
Exactly. So let's talk about how we can do that.
Okay. We said this earlier. We'll continue to do that. Continue to date.
Yes, you've got to always date through every stage of marriage.
Now, that's a little harder with kids, right?
It absolutely is harder with kids.
And so sometimes you have to, you can't just drop everything, go on a date like you could when you didn't have kids. Sometimes that may require a date night of going on a walk or sitting on the porch after the kids have gone to bed. It may require finding a babysitter, and we won't go through that a whole lot again because we talked about that on previous podcasts. There's lots of good ways to find babysitters.
Yes.
And so
be creative with your dating. It can be done when you have kids. Sometimes, like Trey said, you may have to do it after they've gone to bed. You might have to do it, have lunch dates while they're in school, if you can both have, your lunch hour at the same time. But yeah, continuing to date is extremely, extremely important.
Yeah. What you don't want to do is, if you can't find a date, if you can't make time for a date, which you should be able to, but even if it's after you get the kids to bed, you don't want to find yourself falling asleep on the couch or in the recliner every night and not having some time together as husband and wife. That is very important.
It is. So that may require you to, be careful with your schedule. Don't overschedule yourself. Don't get too busy with kids and activities. And we've talked about that a lot too, I think.
Yeah. Be intimate. There's another one. How do I continue to be husband and wife and not just mom and dad? Intimacy is going to have to be a thing we try to make time for, because you won't find time. You're going to have to make time for it. And that is really important. And there's a lot of couples that really struggle in this area.
It is. We just did a workshop in Georgia 2 weeks ago. Has it been 2 weeks almost? And we actually had a couple ask us, how do y'all feel about scheduling sex? Is that a weird thing to do? And we said, no, it's absolutely not weird. And it's really essential almost when you have kids and you're in that busy time of life, because if you just wait for it to happen, sometimes it's just not ever going to happen. You're going to drop in bed exhausted every night. So if you both kind of know, hey, let's kind of keep the schedule clear Friday, let's not be so tired, those kinds of things, then you're prepared for it and you're excited about it.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't mean that you can't be intimate other nights of the week.
Exactly.
But if you just kind of shot and said, hey, Tuesday nights and Thursdays, or if you can look at one another and go, hey, what you got planned tomorrow night? I don't have anything after 9:00 when the kids are in bed. Let's try to be intimate. And you may look at that and go, well, where's the fun in that? Let me say this. It is better to schedule sex and be intimate than it is to not have sex.
Exactly. And, spontaneity is not all it's cracked up to be, honestly, because for women, sex is mostly a brain thing. It's we have to have our minds ready. We have to prepare ourselves. And so scheduling it for women is probably a really good idea.
Yeah. Let's see. There was one other thing I was going to mention. When you have kids, a couple of little tips on this. We mentioned this in our workshop. Is when you have kids and we're talking intimacy, buy a lock to put on the master bedroom door. Every master bedroom door should have a lock. We will preach that until we die. If you're a contractor and you're out there, you build homes and you're listening to this podcast, don't you ever build another house without putting a lock on a master bedroom door. You save them marriages out there, Mr. Contractor, and you put them locks on them doors, because couples need to go to bed and not worry about little Jimmy or whoever it is going to come
up out of bed.
Yeah, kind of come in their room, because my favorite joke is putting multiple children to bed at night is like the whack-a-mole game. About the time you get one down, one pops up.
Yeah.
And so once you get them all down and you think they are still in their bed and maybe asleep, you go to that room and you lock that door.
That's right. And kind of along those same lines, don't let your kids sleep in your bed.
Oh, yes.
That's a tough one. And we had kiddos that wanted to climb in bed with us every night, and it's
occasionally
that's one thing.
It's okay,
Yeah.
and if they have a bad dream and come into bed at night at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's one thing. But every night, if they're in your bed,
if you're letting them just start out, at 9 o'clock or 8:30, hey, let's go lay down and let's go to bed in your bed. That's not healthy. They need to learn how to sleep in their own.
That is true. Beds. That is exactly right.
Because that makes intimacy pretty hard when the kids are always in your bedroom.
Work on. I like this idea. Work on being one of those couples that can go from being mom and dad at one moment. You got kids and you're taking care of kids, and maybe you've cleaned the kitchen up, and then all of a sudden, kids are watching a movie. Kids are playing in their room. They're out on the trampoline. And be one of those couples who can go from being mom and dad to one moment, to husband and wife who can't keep their hands off of one another the next moment. When you can do that, you're probably doing and negotiating marriage correctly.
Yeah, that sounds pretty healthy.
Try to get away once a year. I know it would be good if you get away twice a year, but try to go without your kids somewhere to... It helps to reestablish that marriage and that friendship once a year. Go somewhere, overnight, multiple nights. Hopefully you can. That's one of the things that you and I look back on our marriage, and we look at times where we did, and we think that was a blessing to us.
Yeah.
Because we were able to do that for an anniversary trip or something, and we'd have a sweet Aunt Mel or somebody who would watch our boys and allow us to do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so that was a healthy thing to do. Don't feel guilty. This is really hard, especially for mamas. And I'm not saying dads don't, but mamas, they think, man, I'm leaving my kids for the weekend. I feel so guilty about this. I am their mother. I am not supposed to abandon them. You are not abandoning your children. You are strengthening your marriage. And it is good for your kids to have some time away from you. It is good for your kids to see you dating and to see that mom and dad want to go on a trip together somewhere and want to spend time together. That is healthy for your kids. Your kids don't need to just see you being mom and dad. They need to see you being husband and wife. And that is beyond healthy for them, because watching you be a married couple is important to them, because they are learning how to do marriage by watching you. And if they never see anything but mom and dad, you are not doing well for your kids.
That's exactly right. What they learn from your marriage is going to impact their marriage. And so model a healthy marriage for your kiddos.
Do regular check-ins, meaning every day you should ask your spouse, how are you doing? How are things going? How is work? What's going on in our family? That goes back to that communication, but it is important that you check in every day with that. All right, let's cover this last one. We have gone from newlyweds to kids to empty nest. Now, why, before we get to that, let me throw this out there. This is really important. Why is negotiating the kid stage so important? Why is it so important that we work to be husband and wife and not just mom and dad?
Well, you've got to have that healthy marriage, that strong, healthy marriage when the kids go off, so that you are ready to be together, just the two of you. We know so many marriages that once the kids leave, their marriage was built solely around their kids. And once their kids left the home, they kind of looked at each other and said, I don't really know who you are. We don't have anything in common. And that's sad. That's really sad.
It is. What you don't want during empty nest is an empty marriage. And that's why negotiating the kid stage is so important. People who don't negotiate that kid stage well. And so we've said it before, there's a spike in the divorce rate that happens when kids leave home. And so you need to be preparing for that. And if maybe you're in this, kind of like us, this is new to us, and we're kind of negotiating it right now, there's some things we can do and some things that will be helpful that, to keep us from looking across the table going, who are you? Do I even know who you are?
Yeah. So you got to have things in common.
Yeah. This is a time to refamiliarize yourself with your spouse and to redevelop your friendship with your spouse.
Yeah. Man, find fun activities to do together. Maybe you haven't had, the last 18 years to do a lot of fun things together because the kids have, taken up your schedule with their ball games and all of those kinds of things. So this is your time to get back to doing things, maybe y'all enjoyed playing tennis together before you had kids, and you don't really have a lot of time to do that when you have kids. So, hey, now you get to play tennis again after the kids are gone.
That's it. Now you can be more spontaneous. Once again, you can drop things and go like you once couldn't do, but you need to find some things in common. Find some new things that you enjoy doing. It is important that you do that. Rediscover, relearn one another. Yep. One of the things that I read, this was interesting, one of the things that I read in kind of doing a little research for this podcast is there is one of the big problems that empty nest creates is the emptiness when the kids disappear right at first, that many couples many couples, many people fill the void of the kids being gone by being critical toward their spouse. I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
That all of a sudden you are just nitpicking everything on your spouse.
It's like you don't have any kids to nitpick anymore, so you're going to pick on your spouse. I don't know.
I saw several articles about couples and that all of a sudden the kids are gone and they miss their kids tremendously and they just become super hyper critical of one another. And I just hadn't realized that. And if that's you, catch yourself, watch yourself, be cautious of that. Don't be, man, I miss my kids, and so my husband is driving me nuts.
Yeah.
Or my wife is just, won't hush, whatever it is. And so don't be overly critical.
Yeah, criticism is not good, not healthy for anybody. Nobody wants it. So yeah, watch criticism for sure. I think, and we don't have this on here, but I know for newly empty nest couples, there is a little bit of, there's not a little bit, there's a ton of adjustments that come with that. And there's almost a little bit of a grief, if you can call it that, that goes along with that. And so, and it may hit one of you harder than another at times. And you've got to be patient with each other, and you've got to, be there for one another, or give each other space, whatever your spouse is needing, but be supportive of that. And I think that, at least I hope, that it's not going to last for long, because you're going to fall into a pattern of spending time together and doing fun things together. And
and thankfully your kids can come home.
That's exactly right. Try new things. This is your time to keep going on dates, like you did before kids. We talked about the newlywed stage. You can almost everything feels like a date. And I know Trey and I this last week, it's just kind of like, hey, we just had a little date. That was kind of fun, you know. So.
And it was very spontaneous. It was like, hey, let's go do something.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of new.
You can travel again. You got lots of time to travel again, like you did before kids.
Yeah.
So
we're actually going camping for the next couple of days. We have. Yeah. I don't think we've ever just taken off and gone camping together. So we're looking for new ways to connect.
That's right.
And so volunteering. Exercising together, whatever it is, look for new ways to connect.
Right.
Don't miss out on intimacy.
Yeah.
This is a time to rediscover, if there were always kids and you're all of a sudden the house is yours. Man, how do I say this? There are no rules now.
You don't even have to lock the door, so you don't have to have locks on the door anymore.
That's it. Once you have now they'll come back and grandkids will show up.
That's right.
But whether it's intimacy in the bedroom or not, there's no rules anymore, and that's pretty awesome. Somebody had said you don't have to even wear clothes around the house anymore. So this is a good time to spice it up a little bit. There's not anything wrong with that. Enjoy your time together as husband and wife. Those are healthy things that you can do. And I will tell you, I have kind of grieved a little bit. I've been sad, and I still have moments where I just like, man, I miss not having a kid at home, or it's too quiet, or but at the same time, there have been moments where I've thought, this is fun. Just hanging out, not having to check in and go, hey, what do you want for supper? Or checking with your kids and going, hey, we're going to run here. We just want to let you know. We don't have to do that anymore, And
yep.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of adjustments, and we're consider doing things like that are pretty fun. Pray together as a husband and wife. That is good. And then one last thing I think that might be kind of neat is I read where a couple had, after the kids had left, they renewed their vows. I thought that was kind of cool. Not sure how many of you have ever done a vow renewal. We have not done a vow renewal, but that might be something you want to consider doing at some point. A lot of times people do that at special anniversaries and stuff. And maybe when we get to our 50th.
That's right.
You think our old preacher will still be around that did our wedding?
On our 50th?
Yeah, I don't think so.
Probably not.
We need to bump that up. We love that guy.
Yeah. So, so actually another phase that we don't have on here, we're not going to spend really any time on it because we don't have any experience with it. But I feel like the retirement phase almost takes empty nest to another level. There's a lot of adjustments that have to be done at retirement. Couples go for, they've worked and they don't have to see each other 24/7 to all of a sudden, here we are, what do we do with each other? So you have to figure out how to negotiate that phase in marriage too.
Our friends Mike and Sue Henderson just have gone through this, and we thought that was fun. I've loved listening to them talk about it. Mike went to work as a medical doctor every day, on call many weekends, and all of a sudden, he was there.
Yeah.
And they had some negotiating that they had to do, and I got tickled at some of their stories, and I just thought that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, we always preach, do things together, and so this is when we probably would give you permission to find your own hobbies, so that you each have a little bit of your own space
Yes.
during retirement. But I heard somebody said something funny the other day about, how'd she say it? I have twice as much of you and only half the income.
Oh, that's good stuff right there.
Yeah. So, more things you have to negotiate when you go through retirement, and we're not there yet. But I almost feel like, we spend 24/7 together.
We work together in we already are together a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you don't. I don't get on your nerves.
Yeah. So I don't think retirement will be much of a change. Will feel like much of a change for us now, other than maybe half the income part of it.
Yeah, maybe so. So now we need to go back to saving money again.
That's right. We better start saving up.
That's exactly right. Well,
Yeah.
we appreciate y'all hanging out with us today as we talked about negotiating those stages of marriage. And I'm not sure where you are in marriage. You may be in the blended, you may be in the family. We know a family recently that he raised all his kids, was a single dad, raised all his kids and was living by himself. And now he is remarried and he's got 2 kids in junior high and a kid in elementary. And he's like, whoa, I'm a dad again, And
Wow.
I'm back. I've moved backwards. We don't know where you are, but you hang in there and you work hard to build a great marriage, because it is worth it.
It is absolutely
It is worth it. We're looking at doing some stuff on, hopefully, some blended marriage stuff, blended family stuff next week as we talk about how to negotiate blended families.
Sounds good.
Have a great week, folks. See
Bye, guys.
y'all next week.